Anhedonia, a psychological condition characterized by the inability to experience pleasure in normally pleasurable acts. Anhedonia is a symptom of depression. Without experiencing pleasure, life just loses its flavor. Everyday acts become slogs, where it's hard to feel accomplished about anything or motivated by anything. I suppose then, I've been experiencing a bit of anhedonia when it comes to video games. It's something I've been working on for the past 5 or 6 years. I largely took a break and focused on my other hobbies. Thus, I ended up talking a lot more about tabletop role-playing games with friends, which ultimately led me to making more videos on this channel. I was happy making those videos because it meant that in some small way, I could give back to the TTRPG space, which had accepted me into their home after I struggled to play any video game. Then, late last year, I took a break and reevaluated some things. During this time, I was able to explore some of the video games I had not yet finished. While some games I was very familiar with, specifically Final Fantasy Tactics and Shady Knight, others were more of a mystery to me. The 2 major mystery games were Final Fantasy XIV, which I already made a video about, and Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos. Why was this game a mystery? Well, I had never really dedicated my time to real-time strategy before. Real-time strategy, or RTS, is a genre which is known for being complicated and difficult to get through. The games are focused on managing multiple things at once, as you attempt to make buildings, control the map, and fight with your army all across that map. If I looked up information about any RTS online, I was met with terms and requirements which made the genre seem scarier than it was. Even veteran players are often discussing how the genre is just off-putting to new people who have never touched it before. The solutions to this problem are widely debated. Should RTS designers focus on building a campaign that's more of a tutorial, or should there be incentives for new people to play more often so the community doesn't feel so full of people who have a strong knowledge of the game already? There's a lot to consider when your genre is considered niche and difficult for new people. While I've been saying this all in the abstract, I think that for these reasons, I really didn't feel like I should even bother with the genre, especially since I was just bad at it. Look, while some people are really great at being bad at things, I am not one of those people. I hate the feeling of knowing that I'm a total dunce at a game. It feels almost rude. I don't like the feeling of walking in after I've barely learned anything, expecting my opponent to spend their time destroying me within the first few minutes. This feeling is strong, even though I personally know that when I run into someone who's brand new at a game, I just feel like they need some help, so they can understand the game a bit better. I'm not frustrated at winning, I love winning. Yet, I was still stuck in this mentality that I was bad at RTS, not because of any good evidence either. My only example of ever getting into anything remotely like RTS was Pikmin on the GameCube. This was a terrible metric to measure my confidence by, yet I was still insecure about my ability to play more traditional RTS games. It didn't help that I grew up playing platformers and action games. These games are often not focused on testing my ability to multitask. They only ask me to react well and make on-the-fly decisions. While RTS has some of that, it also asks me to check up on multiple squads and manage how much I'm building at the same time. The enemy trying to kill you during the campaign is also small potatoes to the competitive multiplayer modes. Which is all to say that I wasn't just intimidated by the genre, I had defeated myself in it before starting. This was the case until something changed. While it initially started out small, my descent into RTS was sparked by simply watching the games. RTS games are really fun spectator sports for any kind of viewer. This naturally makes you interested, but just like with real-life sports, I liked watching, but I didn't feel the need to participate. Eventually though, I found myself watching a video by YouTuber Cloud Cuckoo Country, which was meant to introduce new players to the RTS genre. This is the kind of video essay that I just love to eat up. There's a clear story about how the community is constantly misidentifying the problems with the genre, then the main speaker cuts through all of the noise about the subject to provide their own prescription in the form of the Age of Empires 4 tutorial partway through the video. Despite how good it is, the video didn't yet get me to play an RTS game. I played a few matches of Age of Empires 2 with friends before I gave up and played other things for a while. Then, while trying to find something to listen to on my plane trip to visit my fiancé, I stumbled across this video by Giant Grant Games about Warcraft 3, the predecessor to World of Warcraft. While I was never a big fan of World of Warcraft, there was something that intrigued me about the video, so I gave it a watch. I slowly became enamored with the idea of Warcraft 3 and wanted to give it a shot. For the first time in half a decade, I logged back into my Battle.net account and bought the reforged version of the game in a bundle with the first 2 Warcraft games. I had an RTS I was interested in, but Now I had to go through the process of understanding if I was going to push through my inexperience and get invested in this game. I just had to get through the first mission. After the tutorial, the first mission in Warcraft 3 is built to inform the player about what's in store for them for the rest of the game. Before I'd even pressed a button, the game established that the stakes of the current situation were low.
Can the formalities, Uther. I'm not king yet. It's good to see you.
Sure, there's some danger, but Arthas and Uther are making jokes and cracking wise, filling the scene with levity. This helped me to lower my guard a bit. RTS games can be very stressful, so having a small moment like this to show that things aren't life or death all the time helped me feel more comfortable as the game started. The conversation also ends with Uther, the far more experienced character, running over to handle the situation developing with the orcs, allowing me to relax further.
I need to move against the orcs base immediately. Can you handle Strongrad's defense on your own?
Of course, Uther. Don't worry about me.
Good. Meet me at the orc camp once you've saved the village. Be careful, Arthas.
This is great because when I'm relaxed, I feel more willing to learn and experience new things, which is important for starting out a new game and being so unsure about it. After that first cutscene, the game allowed me to get a hold of Arthas and his small group of footmen to save the village outside of Strombrad. This is where I started moving my units around. Luckily, the orc tutorial taught me all I needed to know about that. I was able to start walking around without issue and explore that first map. I knew Arthas was a hero unit, which is the game's way of integrating some of its RPG elements into the RTS genre. But what I didn't know from all the tutorial was that hero units are especially fun to use and play. They have more going on than an average unit, with unique abilities and inventory to manage, and you have to use them so they level up, making them feel very distinct from the nameless soldiers you keep around. Managing the RPG aspects of the hero units in the game is actually one of my favorite things that the game does to help new players. In my case, I'm very familiar with RPG mechanics in games, and so being able to play with them when playing a new game made me feel pretty confident with my hero units, compared to my footmen, or even the process of creating buildings. Being more confident is important because it encouraged me to do things that would normally intimidate me in this context. The best example of this is scouting. Due to non-faction enemies being available for experience and unique pieces of equipment lying around, you end up exploring a good portion of the map and actively rewarded for it. This taught me the value of scouting and getting a good idea of what the map looks like before making a plan. Now, I probably shouldn't scout with my hero, but the lesson of understanding the space is still important. Another lesson that's important for the game is learning that the hero unit is significantly stronger than the footman. This serves the important function of teaching players that enemy hero units are also going to be tougher than any standard unit. This isn't to say that the regular units are worthless though. As I gained levels, I saw Arthas' support abilities start to show up, meaning that a strong hero unit helped my whole squad, not only the hero. Strong units win fights, so this first mission provides a ton of incentives to care about the hero units as much as any other unit. Without this introduction, hero units may have felt too unwieldy or unnecessary to the narrative. Knowing their strength made me feel significantly more confident jumping into fights at the start. Now, to be clear, the first mission doesn't spend its whole time focusing on just combat. They really wanted to emphasize the RPG systems in the game, and one of the ways they enhanced this is by having side quests in the mission. This is huge given that other RTS campaigns lack this feature completely. Sure, other games have side objectives here and there, but they aren't always given by a random character who just happens to be moving around on the map. This helped the setting of Warcraft 3 feel realized in a way I wasn't expecting at all on my first playthrough. Now, that's not to say that it starts out that grand. The first side quest is small, saving someone's child. Later on, these side quests are going to be the point of the campaign, but in the first mission, they're just used to establish the idea, since the first job is to save innocents. I gained a sense that Arthas and the humans are good guys, meant to help the innocent and needy. This is important to establish early in the game, given some of the events later. This is all done with just a few lines of dialogue and the use of important subversions later on. While this is just a part of the narrative and could be in any RTS game, without any context, I was really surprised with how far Warcraft 3 goes to make sure its players really care about the characters and the world before getting into the mechanical RTS elements. Eventually, I used those mechanics to save the kid. I was then tasked with securing a title deed from bandits. This one sets the tone in a similar way to the previous side quest. However, it also taught me that some quests are going to require me to keep space in my inventory for important key items. A repetition of a narrative point, but also I learned an interesting mechanical implication. Heroes have limited bag space, so managing your inventory is going to be something I have to keep in mind as I play. There's also this nice moment I had where I met a couple of citizens who gear up to fight for my cause. Again, the small moments in the game are what really sell the world and characters to me. I felt a sense that Lordaeron was a real place before any of this started. Sure, it's textbook storytelling. Before the fall of a great nation, you should set up how pristine and idyllic it is. Yet, it worked on me, since it is handled well, while also teaching you the basics of playing the game. It makes sense that this setting would become an MMO, because it just nails those small moments. I felt a real connection to the game world, and I was intrigued to see what happens next. After exploring and getting used to unit movement, I was then thrust into armed conflict. This is the big leagues, no more groups of bandits or anything like that, just a straight up fight with orcs and humans. This section is fun, not just for allowing the player a real conflict with one of the other factions, but also because it is a direct continuation of what Warcraft 2's story was doing. The fight between orcs and humans continue. The orcs are a lot stronger than the random bandits I'd been fighting, but that's alright given my numbers and how scattered the orcs are. I was nervous, at first, trying to sort out where to go and what to do, but ultimately, I succeeded without issue. The first mission was completed, and we can move on to the next one. While it may seem like a small thing, getting this early win was important for helping me feel like I had a good amount of control in the game, and I had the confidence to keep moving forward. The first mission being built from the ground up to be new player friendly also helped out. Rather than getting overwhelmed with building things or trying to manage aggression or scout, these things either came up naturally during play, or they are focused on at a later point. In spite of that, the first mission establishes the core tenets of the campaign's loop quite well. I learned to explore maps, gather resources, and engage the enemy. While some missions work differently, those are generally exceptions, with a majority of the missions following that explore, build, attack structure. I'm not going to go into as much depth with the other missions. However, I do want to point out how well those missions continue teaching RTS fundamentals. I learned how to build bases and the power of ranged units in the next mission. Then the game taught me how to manage 2 different heroes in the field, and the mission after that is all about defending your base while you're exploring. Now, this can sound like a lot, but the game also works its magic to make the learning process less intimidating. Uther is a big font of power in the early game, and Jaina provides the player a big advantage over the enemy. With those two in the early maps, I wasn't as concerned with handling some of the baddies coming my way. This pace of learning continued through the rest of the campaign, eventually requiring me to manage multiple heroes and multiple squads in Northrend. I had to use Arthas, Muradin, and their small squad while also fighting Mal'Ganis' troops and exploring the map. I was having a ton of fun managing both halves of the army, and making sure I wasn't leaving myself open to losing a ton of troops. I learned how to handle the pressure, and eventually finished the campaign. Despite the campaign ending though, I still had only scratched the surface of Warcraft 3. There's probably a group of people who play Warcraft 3 and get frustrated with the repetition of its lessons at the start of the first 3 campaigns. Yet, I thought this was a great move. As I played Warcraft 3, there are a lot of lessons I learned through making mistakes in the early maps, which weren't an option in later maps. Starting a new campaign, then, is a great way to relearn those lessons and test your skill at the fundamentals. The choice may seem odd on repeat playthroughs, however, it helped me a ton when learning the mechanics of the game. The slow starts of the Undead and Orc campaign are attempting to make sure the player is comfortable with the core loop, while also introducing new faction mechanics. Eventually though, this stops with the Night Elf campaign, which assumes the player has sufficient ability to play through the rest of the game. For example, unlike the previous 3 campaigns, the first Night Elf mission requires the player to fight a high-level paladin hero, while also exploring the map for furbolgs to gain some extra units. The previous 3 campaigns start out without requiring the player to build anything substantial, so the Night Elves feel tougher by initial comparison. Now, this has nothing on the Frozen Throne, which simply assumes that the player is ready for anything, which fits its different pace compared to Reign of Chaos. This slow progression and then regression in difficulty actually makes the campaign of Warcraft 3 have its own pace, which feels a little like seasonal television. And by the end, there's a complete story. I had a full appreciation of each faction, their culture, and their leaders by the time everything was said and done in Reign of Chaos. I also felt a clear understanding of what each faction's strengths and weaknesses from a gameplay perspective are. Each one had unique skills they brought to the table, which represented the way those factions interact with the world. For example, the Orc Pillage ability allows them to gain money by attacking enemy buildings with certain units. That says a lot about how the Orcs feel about money, as well as why an Orc player may focus less on gathering gold in the late game. That harmonization between the game's narrative and the game's mechanics gave me an understanding that I wouldn't otherwise get from just the cutscenes. It took time and play to gain a full understanding of these aspects. That's the real takeaway though. I stuck to it. Warcraft 3 gave me confidence to approach the rest of the game and other RTS games. I haven't been able to talk about the Frozen Throne as much since I've not yet started it. However, the main game of Reign of Chaos was so well done that I'm not even that worried about it being a jump in difficulty, and from everything I've seen, it's supposed to be even better than Reign of Chaos. That change in attitude is thanks to the well-crafted campaign in this game. Once I was very nervous to even explore the genre. I'm awful at strategy games, usually failing to take all things into account. Yet, now I feel a bit more confident. I don't think I'm a particularly good player, but I am enjoying the genre a lot more. I'm finding that it's becoming less and less intimidating over time. Games like Pikmin, which were once blind spots in my gaming repertoire, are now becoming some of the best experiences I've had in some time. All thanks to a great first mission, some solid onboarding, and a fantastic set of characters and stories to latch onto. I hope to continue my journey through RTS, but before we wrap this up, I want to tell a story about 2 strategies I employed during my playthrough of Warcraft 3. Allow me a moment to indulge. The final Orc mission of Reign of Chaos is tough. The game expected me to have a solid understanding of the Orc faction by this point. I also had to contend with fighting another Orc faction, which had fewer units, but each unit was buffed. On top of all that, I had to deal with a reign of chaotic members of the Burning Legion. In short, the mission required me to play smart. I had to continuously fight other Orc encampments while also managing my base so it doesn't fall, while also making sure the human base also didn't fall. This is obviously a lot to keep track of. That said, I did know of a way to make this mission a lot easier. I equipped Thrall with the Necklace of Spell Immunity and walked his green ass over to Grom and ran back to the point. I won the mission, but I did feel strange about it. I was required to think about my equipment and use it in an intelligent way, but that doesn't really satisfy me from a gameplay perspective. I sat with it for a bit before I did decide to replay the mission. I learned a lot that way. Previously, I was trying to separate my heroes, but due to the many points you have to control on the map, this mission is really best done while both heroes are together. They make up for the lack of other units available. Thus, Thrall and Cairn were meant to move along, take encampments, and secure points of interest. All the while, I had to focus on building at home and holding a separate gold mine to ensure I didn't run out of money. That said, I did reach a nice rhythm of attacking, checking my base, and occasionally having to deal with a member of the Burning Legion. I remember building watchtowers to handle them if I was busy looking at Thrall and Cairn's group. Eventually, through this, I managed to secure more enemy encampments. I was then able to gather a big army to fight the encampments closest to Grom. This eventually led me to setting up to where Grom was and taking him and running back home. I had won. I'm not really sure how to convey that sense of victory. I was elated that I had done the mission the hard way, and even though it was tough, it fell by the wayside. I managed to win. It was the catalyst for feeling like I could take on the rest of the game without issue. I knew that even if I was struggling with something or a mechanic was giving me a problem, I knew that I could solve that problem. I demonstrated a solid understanding of the game. It was fun. I liked it. Now, I can also say I like RTS generally, which is frankly a huge deal for me. It helps that RTS, as a genre, largely focuses on similar things even if you go from game to game. Warcraft 3 is ultimately about managing your army, exploring the map, and taking objectives. Pikmin is also about managing your army, exploring a map, and taking objectives. It's just that the army is little carrot people, the map is Earth, and the objectives are ship parts. Age of Empires 2 is the same way. You build an army, you find resources by exploring the map, and you take control of that map and attempt to progress through the ages. This makes RTS a really fun genre to explore. Getting good at the rhythm of multitasking is actually the important bit, rather than a lot of the micro-optimizations you make over time. Meaning it's easy to take my experience with Warcraft 3 into other games and find the juice that makes them fun. I've heard it said that depression isn't actually about feeling sad all the time. Instead, depression is about not feeling anything at all. For some time, I felt nothing at all when it came to video games. That's a rough space to be in. That's sort of reflected in the channel. There's a long time where there are no videos on this page because I didn't feel strongly about video games anymore. I made a lot of Lancer shorts to make up for it eventually, and there are some TTRPG opinion pieces here or there which sum up what I'm feeling about that particular part of my life. It's important then to remind myself that I can feel things. Warcraft 3 made me feel great about RTS games, but also video games as a whole. I'm looking through my backlog a lot more and actually picking games to play from it. I mentioned Pikmin a bit because I really fell in love with the games when gathering footage for this video. Feeling that urge to explore, and having felt like I've satisfied it and rediscovered my love for video games, it's frankly a miracle. Warcraft 3, of all games, pulled me back in. It's an incredible game that taught me how to play and enjoy a genre I've never touched before. I just didn't think it would happen at this point. I didn't think that Warcraft 3 would solve my gaming depression.